Dude, I have a small business. I own a little record store and movie shop, and I'm only open on the weekends. But I scored an original Blink-182 Cheshire Cat first press cassette. I don't even really like this record, but it's something I grew up with, and that blew my mind.
Yeah, I never really liked that. I grew up on Anima of the State and everything post that.
Yep.
When I was a kid, I tried to listen to Cheshire Cat, and I was like, I don't know. And then I never tried again. I don't know. Maybe I'd like it now that I'm older.
I will say I had to listen to the tape in its entirety to make sure I could buy it because it wasn't a $5 tape. And it brought back a lot of memories. Even though my first was Dude Ranch, it still felt like I was a kid again. I was like, oh, this is rad. So it was pretty cool, man.
Isn't there one really classic song on Cheshire Cat that I'm thinking of?
Yeah, it's called Carousel, I think.
Yeah, Carousel.
Yeah, Carousel.
Josie on there too, or am I thinking of a different one?
Josie on there? I just listened to it. I should know this, but I was like,
know that everything is that Carousel?
No, that's on Dude Ranch.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking of Dude Ranch.
Everything's gonna be fine. That one? Yeah. Let's go. Hell yeah. All right. What's up, everybody? How you doing? Welcome back to the Punk Rock Review Podcast. Today, I've got a special guest with me. This is April from APES of the State. Dude, what's up? How are you today? Thank you for joining me.
Doing good. It's kind of hot where I am here in Historic PA, but we just took the dogs for a walk, and now I'm just chilling. So,
I'm very familiar with that. I'm in Houston, Texas, and it's constantly 110 degrees. It just doesn't stop. So, in the interest of transparency, I only recently become aware of your music. Maybe I'd say 6 months ago. Started seeing the name around. It was when I started posting stuff about Pat the Bunny. It wasn't for any reason other than I just like his music. So I started seeing you get tagged a lot, and I was like, cool. So I went and checked it out. And so what really drew me to wanting to talk to you was your transparency as well. You don't seem to be worried about being yourself, and I think that's pretty refreshing. So thank you for that, first off. But how did you get started playing this particular brand of punk rock? So if anybody doesn't know, it's folk punk. Sorry, my apologies.
Well, so I never really played music. I was in a shitty punk. I could curse on your channel.
Yeah, you would do it. Okay. You do.
I'm just sure. I played guitar and drums when I was a kid. I played in a bunch of crappy punk bands. Nothing that ever really went anywhere. I lost that for a long time. I lost interest in playing music.
Sure.
And when I got sober in 2014, I was listening to a lot of Pat the Bunny and Mischief Brew. I was kind of just diving into folk punk for the first time ever. I used to listen to Bright Eyes a lot, in high school. So it kind of it reminded me of that, but a more gritty Bright Eyes, that. It sounded relatable to the old punk stuff I grew up on. We were just talking about 82. I loved pop punk growing up. And I was like, oh, okay. So these kids Pat and Eric Peterson, I was these guys are just kind of fusing that kind of acoustic emo with a punk, a gritty punk. That's in my mind. That's what I thought it was. So that's what drew me to it. And really the raw honesty of it and the fact that it sounded accessible. It was just a guy with a guitar, just talking about his life. It sounded like something I could emulate, or that I could at least cover the songs myself,
Right.
That's the thing about being in a band. It's all right, I got to find the drummer, I got to find the bassist. It's it felt like complete songs, but just a guy, So
that's one of my favorite things about it. So I've been in bands and stuff too. I currently run a small little indie label. We do mostly cassettes and CDs. But the first dude I put a tape out for, he was a hip hop artist for the exact same reasons you were just talking about, because he was in a hardcore band, but he was dude, then I got to depend on 5 people.
Right.
And so there's a lot to be said about being able to pick up an acoustic guitar and just, zone out, sing your sorrows, open yourself up, and whether you record it and let people hear it or not, it's almost irrelevant at that point. But yeah, folk punk's a beautiful thing because of that.
Yeah, I think like right now too, with like TikTok being like the main social media platform like the kids are using and like that everybody's really using to spread music is like it's kind of ushering in a resurgence of like singers like the singer-songwriter kind of music because it like
Hmm.
that platform lends itself so well to just one person with a guitar like and it's all about like having like a witty lyric, you know, like people are
100%.
songwriting again. They're paying attention to that and yeah, like I'm seeing like a lot of kids like pop up that are just doing the acoustic thing, whether it's like punk or just like anti folk or whatever, acoustic emo on TikTok and like touring post COVID now. Like you know, it's
Yeah.
like
Oh,
COVID like since 2020. I'm like meeting like younger people all over at like our shows that like were never part of the scene yet. That kind of like came up out of just building a little following on TikTok by like playing their acoustic songs. I think it's so cool. So like I kind of see that like, you know, ushering in a new wave of folk punk, if you will.
it absolutely is. Have you heard that kid Ike Brand yet?
No.
He's a little blonde-haired kid. I think he's pretty young. Dude has got some fantastic lyrics. And when I played music, I was a vocalist and lyricist, and that's kind of what I did. I would write songs on acoustic guitar, and then we'd plug it in, and I was the guy that did the structural part of the song, and then my guys that were really really great musicians would fix the stuff I did wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And this kid is rad. Man, if you ever get a chance, check him out. He's really good. I like I think it's funny that like within the genre, everybody's like fighting over whether it's folk emo or
Yeah.
what's what's punk rock. Like first off, that's gonna always happen. Like we're gonna gripe about it, but we're still gonna do it as well. It's
Right.
just always a thing. With everything that you love, when it becomes a community, people like to bicker about things, and then there's these little lines drawn. And I mean, how many subgenres of punk rock are they? It's all punk rock.
Right.
Like, you guys are y'all currently on tour, or were you about to tour, or were you just getting home from a tour? I can't remember. I saw you said something, but I can never tell with the dates on TikTok.
We're kind of always in that state that you described. So
You're right, for sure, for sure, for sure.
we just got back from a tour and I'm going on another tour in another band that I play in and then we're going to Australia with Apes. So like yeah, we have a lot going
Nice.
on this year.
That's amazing. That's just so awesome to see people being able to do those things and go to places like Australia. Like, I've never left Texas. I'm going to go on a trip here in the next couple of months for my first time outside the state, and I'm really excited. It's not easy to do that. It takes a lot of dedication. Have you
That's why I
left?
never left Texas.
No, dude. Like, so when I was young, I was really poor, like
Mm-hmm.
real poor, two families in one house type of poor, and we didn't even realize we were that poor till I was an adult. You know, it just is what it is. And I think when I was really, really, really small, my mom took me to a couple places. I don't remember it. I
Yeah.
was probably 2 years old or younger. But yeah, my mother-in-law and my sister-in-law live in Australia, oddly enough, and so
Oh,
that's a goal we have, is to get out there to go see them at some point. But
yeah. The older you get, it gets harder to leave home too, because then you have things that keep you there. So
I've got 3 kids and a small business, and then obviously my channel, which the channel can be paused, but I love it, so I
mm-hmm.
tend to want to take care of it. But yeah. So have you left the country before on tour yet, or is this your first time
Like not if you count Canada, but like this will be our first like time really like
outside the
I feel like
North
Canada.
America?
Yeah, Canada is just like an extension of the United States, really. So
That's how I feel about Mexico down here. I'm like, well, it's just
yeah,
Mexico. It's like right next to Texas, so it's like the same place basically. That's amazing. I really enjoy your lyrics. Like I said, I'm not going to act like I've been around since. So no, I mean, I just got into it a couple of months ago, and I really do like it. I like your vocals a lot as well. Uh, my wife and I were listening to it this morning, and I don't know if you've heard this before. You probably have, but I said, man, it sounds like folk pop punk to me. Like that's like you
mm-hmm.
say that all one word, folk pop punk. That's what it. And I love pop punk, so it really was nice. And I know you're in. I guess you're sober now. I just hit 10 years, so yeah, it's a life of its own, I guess, huh? Being sober when you're not used to it, it's a weird thing. I had a kid and was like, I gotta figure out how to grow up and be an adult myself. So how's life treating you in this sober realm? Are you still sober, or are you doing okay with that stuff? Was it hard? I guess it was, huh?
Yeah, I'm right behind you, 9 years.
Yeah, you said 2014 a minute ago. You just said that to me, so yeah, I
Yeah,
should have known
yeah, no, I mean that doesn't mean I stayed sober the whole time. So,
for
but I
sure.
did. I like, I started drinking when I was like 10 or 11, like really early in life, and I kind of defaulted on it as a coping mechanism. And then like my whole like teenage years, really everything I did, the activity was kind of centered around drinking or drug use in some way. Like if I would go to a concert, it was like you got to drink at it, or what drugs are we doing at the,
Right.
or like anything really. But it left me in a really miserable place in my mid 20s, when I just like when kind of, I guess the act of like covering up emotions and running from my feelings for so many years, for over a decade, like caught up to me. I feel like, and it just like it didn't work anymore. Like it was like I can't. It's not working anymore to cover up. I'm still miserable, not having fun. It's not social anymore. Like that was the big
No.
thing, is that it wasn't a social thing anymore. It was just like me by myself. And I'm a really social person, so that's like kind of the opposite of who I am. And but like, so I got sober when I was 24 because it was kind of like life or death for me. It wasn't like you said you had a kid. Like it wasn't nothing like that. It was really just that like I thought, I either need to like learn to live and cope with life sober, or I'm gonna die like this in my early 20s. Like I watched so many of my friends die.
I've definitely experienced that.
Right. And I mean, I got into the punk scene. Like I did like NA for 2 years when I first got sober. That's how I ended up moving out to Lancaster, because I went to
Oh,
rehab.
okay.
I'm originally from New York City, and then I lived in
Oh, okay.
then I lived in New Jersey for a couple of years for college, and then I moved here when I went to rehab, and then I stayed here because I liked the art and music scene, and it was like cheap enough that I could like build a life here.
Nice.
And I feel like part of the reason why I drank and did drugs, like it was obviously like the reasons I said, with like not being able to cope with like my emotions, but also like I was feeling an immense pressure when I graduated college. Like I think a lot of kids, I'm not a kid anymore, I'm in my 30s, but like millennials, when we came of age to graduate into the workforce, and then like the economy was completely fucked.
Oh,
There was like,
bad.
I was like working at a job in my field that I graduated in. I was like making barely enough. Like I'm looking at the cost of living going up in New Jersey and going up in New York City where I grew up, and realizing that I'm never going to be able to afford to buy a home in the city I grew
Right.
up, like I didn't grow up poor. I grew up middle class, but still like I'll never have the living my parents did. I'll never be able to afford a house in New York City. Forget about it.
No,
Um,
that's impossible unless you're wealthy.
Right. So I was like, even going to college and getting a degree, and like I have a science degree in like a pretty good field, I realized that like basically I was never going to have that living, and I was just going to be in this rat race, and it ate at me. I was kind of feeling like,
Yep.
what the fuck is the point? And when I came out here to Lancaster, and like the cost of living was low enough that I was like, oh shit, I could like build a life here. I could maybe do something I want to do with my life, which at that point I didn't really know yet what I wanted to do,
Sure.
but I knew I wanted to not do what I was, doing before. I didn't want to do drugs. Um, and I wanted to figure it out. And I figured like, I mean, here, like when I first moved here, I was working in like restaurants and shit, and I could afford my rent. Like if I lived in New York and I was just working at some restaurants, I would be still living with my parents. So like I had that time, like, that 2 years um before I started the band, to like work, just doing like whatever little jobs, and like working in my field a little bit, and just making enough money to live. And then, deciding ultimately that I was going to try to pursue the band like full time.
Hell yeah.
Um which is what we did around like 2016, 2017, when we first started really touring. Uh, but yeah, it offered me that breathing room. So like the whole time I've been doing music, I've been sober. I never really did music before I was sober. So I can't really relate to people that say it's hard for them to go to shows sober, or like play and perform sober, because
Yeah.
I never performed not sober. I don't know what that's like. Um, but I know that when I have an activity to do or something to focus on at a show or like at an event, that I do
Okay.
I do way better. And
Yeah.
those thoughts to like use, like I don't go out to bars. Like I don't go to social events where like all we're doing is drinking. I'm like,
Okay.
oh, we're going to a show. Okay, I'm there for the music. Oh, we're going to like a board game, play board games. There's going to be a focus on that. Oh, we're going to this, like, even if we are going to a bar or something, like, say it's somebody's birthday and they're like, we're all going to this bar. I'm like, all right, that bar has a pool table or it has like a, some kind of activity for me to do. 'Cause
Yeah.
otherwise I just get burnt out in those situations and I like it gets exhausting,
It does get exhausting. And I was going to say, I played plenty of shows inebriated. I don't remember hardly any of them, man. And that's kind of the cost that I paid for doing all that dumb shit when I was younger, is that I don't remember hardly any of it. I have these little like memory blips. And it's funny because when I had my kiddo, the only reason I was headed down a bad path, man, I was on enough drugs. I don't even want to get into exactly what I was doing, but it was a lot. It was a whole lot. And I would have definitely ended up either dead or in jail. But I was high in the hospital, and I mean like real high, holding this little baby. And he's just looking at me, and I just started crying, man. And I saw tears hitting him on the face, and he was kind of like doing this, like, he's a baby, little infant. And I started kind of laughing, and I wiped his face off, and I thought, man, I can't. I either get to have this, or I can have that. And I mean, it was rough. So it was tough, man. It was tough. I mean, I did a lot. I couldn't afford like a rehab necessarily. So I just like went and found a doctor that could help me. And me and my wife just kind of decided we were going to make it happen. And I'm still improving. I just quit drinking soda like 7 days ago. I'm not even a week into that yet. I'm still trying to figure out little things to improve in my life. I want to lose some weight, be healthier. I'm middle life now. I'm 41. I don't want to die at 56 years old like my dad. So,
Right.
It's, I think people assume that because you're from a place that's not dirt poor, that you don't have problems. And I think that's so stupid. Like, rich people probably have as many problems as we do. They're just different problems.
I mean, case in point, like we think of like, I mean, we already know that like having a lot of money doesn't make you absolved of issues.
1,000,000%.
Like, know this over and over in the media. All we see is like, do you remember, like in my teens, I remember watching like Lindsay Lohan's debacle, like her bout with addiction.
Britney Spears went through her thing.
Like ripped apart. Like these people, it could be even more isolating. Like honestly, that's like one of the nightmare things is like thinking about being so absurdly rich. Like, have you ever watched So Absurdly Rich that nobody leaves you alone? Like, have you ever watched these paparazzis harass people? Like,
I don't understand how that's legal.
You can't buy serenity and peace in your life. At a certain point, like once you have that level of fame, they're just stalked 24/7. Like, forget about it. I just walk the dogs around my neighborhood. I wouldn't be able to do that. I go for a hike. I wouldn't be able to do that. It's like all your freedom is gone. So yeah, you have anything you ever want to buy, but you can't fucking move around the world anymore without like a Secret Service like entourage of people.
Life is not as simple as money makes you happy, and it's not as simple as it doesn't either. It's very complex. It's layers and layers and layers of questions and situations and stresses and all of it. And it's more or less you gotta try to make every day like a good day. That's how I try to do it anyways. Is today a good day? Like, did my wife and I argue? Because if so, that's not a successful day to me, man. I'm trying to rein myself in. I want to be more chill. I want to be more just easy to deal with. I'm not the easiest person. I'm very high strung. So like, I don't, and then being an addict, man, everything I do is, you can tell, like everything I do. I mean, look at behind me. How many movies and music do I need? Like, do I really need all this shit? No, but I can't like, but
that's why I collect music, because I'd end up like that, and I don't even own a record. I don't even own a record player because I know I would collect every record.
Man,
I don't even have the ability to do that. Where
it gets ridiculous.
So
it gets so crazy, and like I have the little like out like, oh, but I own a record store, so I can just sell shit at my store, which is honestly true and pretty nice. But
you're not selling your stuff.
No, there's records that I'm not selling. I got a Wingnut like LP. That's not for sale, bro. Like. Yeah, it's fun. I mean, like, look, pick this up at my store today. Where's it at? It's at my house, man. Like, it's But yeah, I really enjoy listening to the stuff that I went through. A lot of your TikTok content, and it wasn't like I was trying to creep, man. I was just enjoying. I feel like we have a lot in common as people, and man, it was just super cool to hear some of the stuff you were saying. I like that you are proud of where you come from, because it's so stupid not to be out. There's a lot of punk rock kids out there that are like ashamed of the fact that their parents had a little bit of money. And I'm like, man, I'm happy I was poor growing up, because it gave me some stuff that I've used now on a daily basis. But bro, why are you ashamed of? You didn't choose that. You didn't choose that any more than you chose your sexuality, the color of your skin. You don't choose these things. It is what it is. So why use it, and use it the right way, and there'll be no issue ever with anybody. You know?
Yeah, I don't understand the weird like shaming or like gatekeeping people try to do in punk about like not growing up. Like it doesn't make any sense to me. Like my dad had money growing up because he worked. Like
Right.
my generation, I'm 30s, my 30s. If you, my dad is in his 60s, he's a boomer. If you graduated high school and simply worked when you were his age, you could own a house, you could raise a family, you could have a living. Like it honestly didn't even matter like what job you were doing.
Isn't that the
If you had a
craziest
job
thing?
that was like a little bit better, like my dad ended up working his way through college and paying for a college degree with a janitor job that he did at night, right? Because you used to be able
That's
to do that.
amazing.
And then he got a degree and he works at a university. He's really smart and he used his brains to make a business for himself out of it.
That's awesome.
And he has employees, he treats them well. And like he still works. He won't fucking retire. So it's like, how could you be like, oh, you're spoiled because like what, your dad worked growing up? You used to be able to make a living in the United States from working. It makes no sense.
You used to. My wife and I combined, we're okay for the first, I'm 41 and this is my second year making enough money to where I can say like, and I don't have a car note. My car's paid. I own it. So like, if I had a car note, it'd be different. But this is my second year to be able to go, okay, if I want to go take my kids out somewhere, I can just pretty much go do that.
Right.
But I don't have any more debt. I paid off all my debt. My car's paid for. So like, that could easily go away, and we make pretty good money. It's a silly. I think it comes from jealousy and ignorance. So those two things make a lot of mess. They make a lot of mess. Jealousy and ignorance.
People assume that like here's the thing. I think a lot of people don't know, and that's why I talk about it in my TikToks too, that like we don't do music full time. Like I think there's an assumption that when you get to a certain like level of fame in music that like, oh, you're just a musician now. So
Right.
like people see us whatever touring and they're like, oh, like daddy must be paying for that because there's no way you make enough money, right? But it's like we all work. Like
Right.
I work every fucking day. I barely ever have off ever.
I get
Everybody in my band
similar.
works. Like people just assume that like you just do music and the only way you could really afford to do that is if you have some funding somehow, you know?
It's so stupid. I get similar things said to me, or not. I wouldn't say I get said that stuff yet, because I'm still like a small enough like channel and everything to like people are just being really cool to me right now. But like they'll ask me, because which is weird. I bartend even though I'm like in recovery. Like I find it fairly easy to do. Drinking was never really my thing. I like to drink, but it was what it led to that gave me my problems. So like, I don't mind. I stayed away from it for a long time, but I've been back in it another year or so, but I'm making enough money between that and doing my store to where I can kind of live fairly comfortably. But they're like, oh, you do YouTube? And I'm like, yeah, but you don't understand. Like, you don't really make money on this. Like you think that you do. Like you have to have an extremely large channel, and then like even then you need like sponsorships and just a bunch of stuff. And like as an example of what frustrates me about that part of punk rock is that I'm from Houston. The Days and Days guys are from down here. I knew Jesse a long time ago, so I got really excited whenever he had time to talk to me. And so I was posting Days and Days stuff, and I see comments like, oh, I see at least one trust fund there. And I'm like, well, first and foremost, even if that was the case, why do you care?
You
like,
can't,
you know,
trust fund can't write good songs.
That's true, actually. Yeah,
or perform them.
Oh, you said trust? No, yeah, you know what I'm saying? It's so dumb. Like, because somebody has the means to provide you with entertainment, you're mad at them? Like, what are you talking about, bro? First and foremost, that's just not true. So let's just get that out of the way. Yeah. But like, I think it's a jealousy thing. And you know, once any musician, it'll happen to you guys eventually because you're really freaking good. So your music's gonna hit a point to where people will start saying stupid mess to y'all. It just happens.
We've been there already.
Yeah. Man, that's so crazy that people.
It is what like one of those things about getting more well known that like I'm starting to like learn about. And like funnily enough, because you're talking about Days and Days, I was just reaching out and talking to them a little bit because it hit me. Like I realized the other day that Days and Days was the first folk punk band to go viral ever on YouTube, really, because
Yeah.
they had that like there was like this era, like Pat and like Mischief Brew was kind of pre-YouTube, like
Yes.
being a really big force in how people find
Yeah.
and pre like social media as being like a really big force in how people find music. Like, yeah, we had MySpace, but that really wasn't like, it wasn't as big as like YouTube.
No, not even
And,
close.
yeah, Days and Days had Misanthropic Drunken Loner.
Yep.
It went viral and like they blew up because of it. So like, yeah, that was really cool for them. But they also were like, I feel like the first folk punk band that was like sacrificed to the internet of like random people finding this subculture and just shitting on it. And
Yeah.
I just like
it comes at a cost.
I was thinking about like I wonder how that felt, and that like I could kind of relate a little bit because we did have like an Instagram reel go viral in June that like got like over 1 million views on one of our songs, and it led to like that song blowing up and getting streamed a lot. But like there was also hundreds of thousands of comments on that video that were just like people berating us, and then like the rest of our content, because people were then our eyes were on our profile, like people just started coming on like anything I posted. Like I've honestly kind of taken a break from posting on TikTok and Instagram because of that, because like everything I posted would get a bunch of views, but it would be like hundreds of people that were just like whatever,
hate watching. They hate watch.
Yeah, and it's cool because like ultimately the thousands of comments on that one video that went viral of ours caused it to blow up. Actually, they like all of it, funnily enough, like
That's
all
awesome.
the people
No, they don't understand that.
All the people saying we're suck actually made it so that more people that liked us saw the video ultimately, and like they made my stream money double in that month.
That's
so
awesome.
like yeah, it was cool, but also like it kind of sucked, so I don't know.
No, it's a pendulum, man. It swings both ways. It's positive and negatives. Right. This channel that I'm working on right now, it's got like 600 subscribers, right? So people look at it and go, "Oh, he's a new channel." What they don't know is that I've been doing this for almost 4 years, and I got a 27,000 subscriber channel. It's just kind of dormant. It's because it's content I don't love like I love this, and so this started kind of picking up some momentum, and I was like, "Oh, good. I would much rather lean into this because this is where I've been since I was 14 years old." But I did get a couple of little videos that did nothing like no millions, but like hundreds of thousands. And I was like, man, so this is what it's like being like even remotely popular for a minute. I was like, I don't know that I like this, because people were just giving me like, they would just say things about me. You're a terrible father. And I'm like, first off, you don't even know me, dude. And like, I'm like, wow, this is wild. But then my buddy says, look, dude, when you're getting those, that's when you know you're doing right. He's like, you get those. He's like, you get those comments, whatever you're doing, keep doing that. And I just pivoted over to the genre of stuff that I was the most comfortable with and knowledgeable about. And I'm still a novice, I would say, when it comes to this stuff. I've just been around a long time. But yeah, it does suck and rule at the same time.
That's one of the things, honestly, that like I miss about like not being so well known. Like when you're less known, like you're not on the radar for people to hate on. And then once enough people like you, you get into this in between, like case in point, Days and Days, like obviously like the comments on that one video, like but like there was like an in between point where I remember like when Days and Days first went viral, where like people just, even in the folk punk community, like so many people were just like hating on them publicly for no fucking reason.
Dumb.
And then they kind of surpassed that just because they kept going. You know, the haters want you to stop, but because they kept going, they surpassed it, and now it's like it's not cool anymore to like just be a hater to them.
Yeah, I think that's kind of how it goes with anything. When you get to a certain part of success, people hate on you, and then it's like, okay, can you withstand this? Because look at it like it happened to Green Day, it happened to Blink-182, it happened to NoFX. Bro, people hated the NoFX in the 90s. Like, I was there. They hated them. Rancid, they were hated. Now these are like the beloved like
legacy bands.
Legacy bands and uncles of the scene. So you're like, oh no, that's Rancid. No, they've been around forever, bro. That's NoFX. I think Days and Days,
like you weren't
Days
around.
is starting to get.
You weren't around for when everybody hated them. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when So I knew those guys from Days and Days. Then I didn't want like really good friends with them or anything. I just knew them from being around in Houston and stuff. And I remember whenever, I don't know, it must have been 10 years ago now, even when that song first kind of popped, and my buddy is like, "Hey, you like punk rock stuff? You ever heard of this?" And I didn't really know what folk punk was back then. And he sends me this like, might have been an email or told me about it or something. And I was like, listening to it, I'm like, this is really good. And then I'm like, wait a minute, I think I know that dude. And I was like, holy crap, I do know that guy. And it was one of those moments where I was like, this is amazing, man. I was so happy for them. But yeah, success comes at a cost, and it'll be the closest people to you. You'll find out that like your homies are talking crap. And you're like,
I don't have like any friends.
You
my
know,
friends are in my band, so if they're gonna talk,
let's
shit
go.
about me-
My closest friends live in my house, and they call me father and husband. So, like, I got a little group of homies now. Like, once I just got back into punk rock music like actively about 2 years ago. I was out for like 8 years. Once I realized I had to get clean, I was like, I can't do it with these people. And then when I went back, and there was like, I don't know, 20% of the people that were there, I kind of recognized them, and I was like, okay, these are the guys that made it through. And then they're like, oh, what's up, dude? And they're like, I thought you were in prison. And I'm like, almost, And I got to talk to some buddies, and just, it's been refreshing to be an adult in this scene. And then when I was a kid, I never thought I wanted that. I thought I want to be like rah rah fuck you my whole life. Right. Not really, man. Like I wanted it, I did it. I'm glad I'm at this point now. I'm like, I'm happy now. Like,
you know what's really punk is like living past your like 20s.
Yes, because it's difficult.
Super punk rock.
I mean, it's punk rock to like pay your bills and be pissed about it and pay them anyways. Like,
yeah.
So it's punk rock to make your kids comfortable and happy, and make your wife not have to strike. There's nothing cool about drinking 40s at 40. Like that's a song right there, bro. That's nothing cool about that. That shit is dumb. I mean, when you abuse it, but like, I don't know. Everything's okay in moderation, I guess. But I tend to look at things a little different now. I think everybody does that. You grow up and your perspective changes, whether it's because of children or age or illness or loss of a friend or family member. I mean, we've all been through that.
Right.
But yeah. How do you guys feel about so like I've seen that you've got that Apes has at least one LP on vinyl, right?
We have two
on that are actually on vinyl. So I'm a vinyl collector, and I was like, oh, I wonder what this stuff is like going for. I knew it wouldn't be cheap, but man, how does that make you feel knowing that people are willing to pay some of the prices that they're willing to pay for your music? And it might just be a status symbol, but it's still yours, and they're still willing to do it. Is that crazy? Because that's got to be nuts, right?
People are reselling our records for like hundreds of dollars.
Like, so the fact that they sell it for that price, I'm kind of in the middle on that, because I get it. Supply and demand makes sense to me, but I was just wondering how it feels to know that some dude, like somebody like me, would be willing to go, all right, is $120 too much? No, I really want this. I want to own this and keep it. I don't want to ever get rid of it. I'm not buying it to sell it. It's going to be mine. Is that crazy that it commands that to you, or do you think it's just absurd?
I don't know. I'm conflicted on the reseller thing, because like it feels flattering. I'm like, oh wow, like I can't believe somebody thinks my record is worth that much. But also, like, I just want anybody who wants to own our albums to be able to have them, to access it. Yeah. So I'm kind of been actively fighting that resale market by like repressing, especially our first record, because that's the one that's nice. Like everybody wants, that's super in demand. I've just been like repressing it, because like, and I saw Days and Days do that same thing with Rogue Taxidermy, because like everybody really wants that on vinyl, and like ultimately people want it because they resonate with it. That's
the best thing.
So like, why would I want to deny people that in order to like artificially inflate a number that doesn't even matter? Like ultimately, I don't know. I was kind of feeling like a little weird, because one of the record, like we did two variants for our most recent repress. So there was one we only sold at shows, and there was one that we only sold at online.
Okay.
And somebody bought, one of the ones that we sell at shows only, and then immediately put it online for like an inflated price. And I was just like, that's somebody that came to our show and then bought it from me, gave me $25, and then turned around and immediately went home and is trying to double that or whatever. I just feel weird about it. I'm like, I mean, do what you got to do to hustle up money. I really don't care at the end of the day. But like, people that, you know, buy and sell records gotta understand that number doesn't benefit artists in any way. So like, ultimately, most of the time we feel neutral about it or don't like it. Like, I don't like that people, before we repressed our record, I felt bad when people would message me and say, "Hey, are you ever going to repress? Like, I really want to own your vinyl, but like, I see that it's like $100. Like, that's crazy."
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like I feel bad. I'm trying to do my best to get it repressed, but like, yeah, we're independent, so we don't, you know, any funding that we get to repress, we have to raise ourselves. I recently discovered the magic of zero APR credit cards, so that's how I funded our vinyl.
Nice.
1,000 copies last year. Well, earlier this year, sold them all. He was able to use the profits to pay back, obviously, the credit card, but then refund another press. So now we're like,
that's awesome.
Profit to just keep it, you know, pressed.
As long as you're responsible, you can do that. Yeah, for sure.
Right. And that's growing up, you know, like you were saying, getting older.
Yep.
What's more punk rock than manipulating the financial system to fund your records? Need to give it to a label.
100%. 100%. And I'm in a weird spot too, since I do have a little record shop. I like to have some rare stuff that's desirable, but I also would prefer to just have it readily available and deal in volume. That's just what I would rather have. Like when I went and saw Days and Days play a few months back, I was talking to Whitney and I asked her, I said, "Hey, do you have some vinyl that I could buy from you to put in my shop?" And I told her what I was going to do with it. I was like, I just want to buy it and then like, what, you know, $5 markup or whatever it is. And she's like, "Actually, I own these here." And she just gave me 5 copies. And I was like, "Hey, I can pay you for these." And she's like, "No, it's okay." And I was like, "Are you sure?" And I didn't know what to do. And so those are the cheapest records in my whole store. Actually, I've only got one left, but I put them at $20. I was like, "All right, cool. If she's doing that, I'm $20 because, you know, I do have to pay rent." But I wasn't going to put $32 on there or whatever. She gave those to me. It was amazing. I was just like, that's what I'm talking about. And anybody that doesn't like Days and Days for whatever reason, think about what that situation did for somebody like me. That put $100 in my pocket to pay for my shop rent to stay open. But you're mad because they're popular. Like, it's so stupid. Like,
anybody who hates on Days and Days just doesn't know them. Like, that's all it comes down to, because out of every band that I've seen in this scene, those kids have worked so hard, and like, they didn't buy their success. They toured so hard. Like, those kids played in basements and house shows, and they booked their own shows. They DIY'd everything. Literally, I seen Jesse. Second time I ever played with Days and Days was like, I think in 2017, and he was burning copies still of their album Crustfall on CD.
That's awesome.
Like, he was literally just burning copies of it. Like, they DIY'd their way until they literally could not anymore physically DIY it. And like, they deserve all the success they have. And they honestly inspired me to do the same. I was like, well, if they could do that, if they could DIY themselves and play basements until literally they can't anymore, and literally burn and fund their own releases for so many years until they literally can't anymore, and then they want to break and they're going to just sign to Fat to handle that, good for them. Like, all the more power to them for that.
I'm really happy to hear you say all that. I'm proud of them being from my city, because we're down here kind of far away from everything, and it's a little more rare that a band from Houston gets national recognition. Maybe not so much these days with the internet being what it is and all, but for a long time it was hard to get bands from here to like break out of like Texas.
You're pretty down there, you know, like it's like 8 hours to get out of Texas. Like,
it's longer than that from Houston.
Yeah,
I can drive almost 24 full hours and still be in Texas.
Right.
Like, it's ridiculous, but I love my place.
Stuck in doing, like, we play Houston, Austin, and Dallas area over and over, and then maybe New Orleans on like a little weekend trip, and then that's it.
Yeah, you could do New Orleans, probably Shreveport. Yeah, you could do like you could make a good week or two. Oh, what's up, doggy dog?
That's
Oh man, my dog would not be allowed in here because he will not get out of my face either. He's I love dogs so much.
He's starting to bug me because it's about time I feed him dinner. So.
Oh man, hungry puppy! I'll let you go here in a couple of minutes. I don't want to make the dog hungry.
No, it's all good. He's always hungry.
That's right. You know what? That is a fact. Right? I have a American bulldog, and he could eat all day, every day. And then whenever he's not eating, he could just sleep on his back and snore.
Right.
And I'm like, bro, what are you doing, Pedro's dog? And he's like, what? I'm like, come here, man. But yeah, I come from a DIY scene. Like, so I started a little label because I wanted to put out some tapes. I've done it before. I put out a couple of albums back in my 20s, so I kind of knew what I was doing a little bit. But like, for my channels, the merch that anybody buys, it's made in my house. I make it myself, whether it's shirts or patches or whatever. I make it all here, and I love that, man. And it's not even that it's a pain in the butt sometimes, because if I get a big order or something like that, I'm like, oh crap, and then I'm kind of stressed out about it. But like, it sure feels cool to have people that they know that they go, oh no, I want to buy 2 shirts because you're making them. And I'm like, that's awesome, man.
I did a bunch of made merch for our last tour, and it was really cool.
Is that the one where you were sewing the patches on all the shirts?
Yeah, and hats. Yeah, I did like bucket hats.
Man, I commented on that because I do the exact same thing. I go to like Goodwill, and whatever cool shirts that are like maybe like it's a tie-dyed shirt or it's a striped shirt. If it's something unique and I know I can screen on it, I'm like, I'll grab this and make a one-off. And then like I still sell it for $20. I'm like, yo, $20. If you're in Texas, it's free shipping. You know, other than that, it's like $3 to ship it because I can roll it up, put it in a little, thing. I try to do it as cheap as I can. It's funny too, because if you do your own stuff, the thing is people don't know this. If you do your own stuff, it's going to be a little more work, but you can sell more of it and make more money while still charging less money.
Right.
And I've tried to explain that to people, like friends of mine. And I live around and hang around a lot of normie people now because I'm older and I got a family and stuff. So they just don't get it. They're like, I'll come to wherever we're going to be at. I got like ink on my hands and stuff. They're like, what's all over your hand? I'm like, oh, it's screen printing ink. It'll be off tomorrow. Like, what's a screen printing thing? I'll show them. I'm like, oh, this. And they're like, oh, what do you do that for? And I'm like, fun. I just like doing it. I started block printing for fun. And then I try to explain to them. They don't really get it. Like, oh, no, they're just buy it. Like this shirt here probably has I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, it's got a logo on the back of it. What it would look like if I had one on my shoulders. So I screen printed it on there.
The concept of DIY in like to normal people is, even in the context of music, is like so foreign. Like I this where I do like dog sitting and dog training and walking, and like my clients, like I'll tell them about how I'm going on tour, and they're like, oh, like you have an agent and a manager and you're like on a label, and I'm like, nah, I just like do it. Like I just like book. They're like, well, how do you do that? And I'm like, well, I just like email that people and I book those, and they're like they can't fathom that you could do things like that yourself, you know. But it's the whole world. When they were growing up, you know, when older people like boomers or just, you know, older generations were growing up, you used to have like labels found artists for you, and they told you who to listen to through the radio and through their ad campaigns, and like you didn't have the internet
excuse me,
like we have now. People can just do anything yourself. You could book your own tour. You could even record and produce your own music in your house.
Yep.
So it's interesting to see them, you know, kind of like discover that, because it's been a part of the entire time I've been writing music. It's been that experience. But, you know, older people don't get that. They're like somebody, I was trying to explain to my grandfather how I make money, because he's like, he's an old school guy, and he like, you know, he's like always concerned. He's very like a fiscally responsible man, and he's always like trying to drill into me like, you're never going to have enough money. You need to work. And like I try to explain to him, like, you know, we get like some royalties every month from streaming. It's about this amount, and then like when we play a gig, we get about X amount, and then like I do merch sales, and like trying to explain to like older generations that people like my age have like 18 side hustle jobs that we do instead of just having like one career or one 9-to-5. It's like they're like mind blown about it. They don't understand that, but it's it's a whole different world than like what they grew up in, you know.
It's a vastly different world. My wife tells her coworkers all the time, they're like, what's your husband doing? She's like, kind of whatever he wants. Everything. And they're like, what? And she's like, well, he makes shirts sometimes. He does YouTube all the time. He's got a little shop. He bartends a couple days a week. And they're like, wait, does he make a living? She's like, oh yeah, he works hard. And I work really hard. And she's really proud of that. And I'm proud of her for doing her thing. Like my favorite picture of her is her graduation from U of H. I'm really proud of her for doing that, because I could never have gotten a college degree. She didn't happen. I don't care about the money. I couldn't have done it. And so, yeah, it's interesting, because I was going to say that the internet, while being a cesspool of garbage most of the time, it does enable you to go do something like make your own money. And like you said, you can produce your own records, go out tour. it drops in a bucket. If the bucket gets full, who cares how it got there? It just got full. You were able to go and do what you needed to do with that bucket. And I think it's amazing. I've seen a lot of artists do this. I mean, there's a lot of artists that exist without any like real actual label. Like,
I mean, it's the best time
even
in
in rap
history
and hip hop,
it's the best time in history to be a musician.
for
I
sure.
stand by because it's true. Like, you have the ability to not only produce and record your own music, you could release it and distribute it, you could promote it, you could go. I just, when I want to press our record on vinyl, I just email the record pressing plant.
Yep.
And I just
I'm
pay for
very
it and
familiar
do
with
it.
that.
Like, you don't need a middleman to do anything anymore. The gates are wide open. And like, I think, Spotify and streaming, while it has its flaws, is inherently disruptive to the music industry, the traditional model.
Yeah.
TikTok is inherently very disruptive to the music industry. And there's a reason why like labels hate on, these services, but then I turn around and tell the artists on their label, hey, you got to make TikToks in order to promote your music.
Oh, they're always so two-faced and hypocritical. I think that I try to explain to people, they're like, oh, the record industry is so evil. And I'm like, well, it is. If you want to be successful doing music, you're not making your money off of that anyways. You're making your money off of live shows if you're like a substantial artist. Now, if you're an underground artist, you're making money off of all of it. You have to do it's either one or the other. You either have to use the machine because you want to be worldwide like somebody like Travis Scott, or you want to play in a punk rock band and you want to be able to do whatever you want, however you want to do it, which you can. But then you have to worry about you're making your records, getting them sold. But that takes work to do that. Some people don't want to work. But yeah, this is the best time to be a musician or a content creator like I'm doing. I'm going to be able to make a living at this one day. And I don't know how extravagant that living will be, and I don't really care. But I'll be able to take care of some bills doing this one day. And that's amazing to me. Like, I don't even know if I actually care if I do, but it's really amazing that that's a possibility. Yeah.
So I want to spell run thing real quick. You said that artists make their money off touring or live performance. That is, I feel like, a myth that was perpetuated by record labels because they take all the money from record sales and streams from artists. So the only way they can make money is by playing shows. Do you remember?
That's more what I meant. Yeah.
You remember in March of 2020 when suddenly like all the touring bands didn't have any income because they were like, well, fuck, I can't play shows. And everybody was like, okay, so why aren't they making money monthly from their streaming? It's because the label's taking all of it.
Yeah, I think I misspoke a little bit, but yes, I agree 100% what you're saying. This is why
I feel like Spotify and streaming is so disruptive to the music industry, is because artists are waking up to that. Like, some of these kids, I'm not gonna lie, some of these kids on TikTok are making a lot of money every month from streams. They're making more money than bands that have been touring for a decade make off streams every month. Not only because they have a bigger audience, because they are good at using the internet and connecting with their fans on the internet, but also because there's no label taking a cut of it. So they're making a steady income of $2-3 grand a month just from streaming. So if you have that liberty now, like, my goal is honestly with the band, with APES of the State. So I still want to tour, right? But eventually in the next couple of years, I'm going to want to like start a family and settle down.
Sure.
And I want to be able to do that without having to tour. So my goal with the band is to become financially independent in that way, through streaming royalties and through my merch sales and my record sales online, that will support me so that I don't need to tour in order to make money.
I wouldn't even say
like that's becoming a bigger possibility, but also a necessity as we move towards a world with climate change, is that artists are going to have to figure out logistically, like, should I go on tour for the whole summer? And is it going to be possible? Like, we just did a tour this past July and it was so hot the entire time. It was borderline impossible to do it. We were worried about shows getting canceled because of how hot it was. Like, it was.
That's a real thing.
Yeah, it was literally, it's becoming unsafe to tour for a lot of the year because of how hot it gets in certain areas in the United States. So like, I think that's something that artists are going to have to start thinking about. And I think that with Spotify and like the ability to make like passive income off your music, we're going to usher in like a new wave of artists that like might never tour, but will have music careers.
I think
or
that's.
people that like, there's a guy on TikTok, Adjust the Sale. Sorry to cut you off.
No, you're fine.
But like he is he does really well. Like he has like streaming numbers similar to us, and he makes like a decent amount of money. And he does never really tour. He just like lives at home, and he has a kid and a family, and he just has a music career. Whereas that wouldn't have been possible in prior years, you know?
Not even a little bit. I think it's great that people can do that. While I am a guy that loves to go see people play live, I would rather have my musicians be able to make music at home, press an album, put it up on their little web store, sell it however they want to do it, have their streaming. That's how they make shirts, whatever. If you're good at social media stuff, you don't have to tour as much, I would imagine. I think you could probably make that happen pretty easily right now. And I think that it's a little, I don't want to go off on a tangent, but boy, I tell you, I don't understand how people don't understand climate change. Like,
Right.
of course it's going to affect all this. And of course it's real. Of course it's really happening. Have you not looked at, I mean, I was a kid in the 90s. We didn't have 36 days in a row of 105 outside.
Right.
Like it just didn't happen. And these guys want to tell you, oh yeah, it did, look. And you're like, no. I'm talking about in one place. It might have happened. This place was this way, and on Tuesday this place was. So I guess you can make it seem like that, but no, in one place it wasn't always just this hot. It does matter, and our
Even
carbon footprint matters.
Even in the span of the last 7 years, like Apes of the State has toured nearly every single summer since 2016, barring the years we couldn't tour because of COVID.
Sure.
And this is the last 2 years that I've thought it's actually not going to be possible to tour in the summer anymore. Like
Crazy.
we toured down to Florida last August.
Ooh.
We toured, through the heartland of the US this like last July. We followed a heat wave the whole way there and back. It was over 100 degrees for 2 weeks straight, every day, every show we went to, and at a certain point, air conditioning can't keep up when there's 50, 100 kids packed in a room.
1000%. And not only that, but like imagine having, let's say you're a band like your band, and you don't have a brand new vehicle to tour in. You got a used car or used van or used bug, whatever it is you're driving around in, and your car breaks down somewhere. How are you going to go out there and even change a tire in that heat?
Oh yeah, that's incredibly dangerous.
You could get a heat stroke doing that. I care about my people and my friends, and I care about the earth too, to a certain degree. I have to, because I've got kids. What am I going to do? Let them go and figure it out? No. Stop being so lazy. Let's figure it out now. Like, let's just, right. I'm not perfect, and I got a lot of viewpoints that I would imagine. I think everybody wants to act like they all think the same, but we all think a little different. But dude, if you just take a little bit less me, and think a little bit more of we, that sounded so weird. Anyways, like if you just take less me and think we, you'll figure this stuff out. You'll get it.
Yeah.
I mean, at least we can come up with some kind of game plan. Like, I don't know. I sure wish people were a little less selfish sometimes. But
don't we all?
One hand, shit the other, right? But before I let you go, I got a couple of just questions I ask everybody. What are your? I guess you kind of told me your goals. What are your? Do you have? First off, what are your immediate plans? Do you have a new album that you're working on, or are you working on a new single maybe or something like that? And I know you have another band. I can't remember the name of it. I'm sorry.
Local Newsletter. That's
what it is. Local. That's a good name too. Yeah. So what are your plans right now for the near future with both of your bands?
Apes of the State has I have literally songs that I've been sitting on since 2017 that have not been.
Oh wow.
So we have a backlog of songs that we've been working on as a band so that we could record, and I also have a new song that I finally have a date on the calendar at the studio. I'm recording a song this month. It'll probably be out sometime early fall. That was the song I wrote really recently that I feel like the world needs now. So I'm going to push to put it out faster than I would with my other stuff that I take more time, trying to figure out.
Okay.
But yes,
that's awesome.
Now, and then what I'm trying to do is put an EP out ahead of us going to Australia, or at least ahead of us going out on tours next spring, just because we don't have any new recorded music since 2019 out.
Yeah.
And I want to just get stuff out there. I've kind of had to reprioritize the way it's hard to get out of the mindset of a record, like an LP, because I feel like that's dying a little bit, with
kind of
attention spans getting lowered, And with
Well, it
people,
depends on the songs, in my opinion. You know,
what'd you say?
it depends on. I'm sorry, so sorry. I didn't mean to be rude.
No, it's okay.
It depends on the songs because I do music reviews almost every day, and in hip hop and popular music, like pop music stuff, they always drop like 17, 18, 20 songs, and it's like an hour and 20 minutes, and there's only 5 good songs. But with
Right.
most punk bands, they write a good album or it's a bad album. You know, I do like the idea of EPs though. EPs are good. EPs are real nice. They're 5, 6, 7 songs. You get good 10, 12, 15 minutes out of it. You know, in my opinion, I think that's great.
I just feel like the strategy, so we used to do album cycles, right, where you rely on pushing 10 songs, an LP.
Yeah.
And you were worried about selling the maximum amount of copies of that record. Whereas nowadays we're more talking about, with streaming, what's more important from a promotional standpoint is that you're constantly producing a little bit of content to keep yourself in the discussion,
yes,
to keep yourself at the top of the algorithms, and to keep people listening. Like your streams are just like going up over time, and like every time you release something, it's going to spike. So if you drop an album, you drop 10 songs at once, it's like boom, and then it goes right back down. But if you drop, a single, it spikes up, and then a little bit goes by, you drop another single. I feel like that's so what
definitely
I'm for the
like new age of youngsters. Sorry, I'm talking over you. I apologize.
But I'm watching and learning from like the TikTok kids, really, because I see them doing this and I see it working.
You have to.
And I what I want to do is like, record an EP, release the songs like one by one as singles, but then also do like a 7-inch for like the old heads that like record, that like collecting like recorded.
That is exactly what I was gonna say.
Right. And then we're gonna work on a full length too after that. That's the priority first, is just getting a couple songs out, to get. That
definitely would be the priority, I would think, is to get at least something out for new people, for people to hear that's new. And I was talking with a buddy, I said, if you want to do an album, like if you want physical stuff, making an album, I mean, that makes sense to me. I said, but we were talking about what you were just saying about how if you release 10 songs separately, it spikes like this. But if you do the whole thing, it may go a little bit higher, but it's just the one. Mm-hmm. And I said, why don't you just release all your songs over the course of like 6 months that you want to do? While you're doing that, I'll work on some artwork and a layout. And then at the end of it, we go, oh, surprise, this is coming out. It's all 6 of these and 2 bonus tracks that aren't going to be digital. That's how you move the physicals. And it's still only like an EP. And he was like, yo, that's a good idea. And I was like, boom, we can do that on a 10-inch or a tape or a CD. And I mean, I can do all that. And he's like, all right. I was like, cool, let's do it. So there are ways to make, I think, both groups of people happy, because the youngsters don't care. They want most of them anyway. So they want the digital. They want it now. They want it frequent. That's amazing. So what are your biggest influences when you sit down and write music? Do you have like a specific way that you do it, or do you just, when a song pops up, or do you have some bands that you really listen to a lot that influence you, or on songwriting style, or how does that work for you guys, or you specifically, I guess?
I listen to a lot of different kind of stuff, and like honestly, I don't even really listen to a lot of folk punk. Like I listen to all different genres, a lot of hip hop and like heavier stuff. Like Smashing Pumpkins has always been one of my favorite bands. Like I like all different kinds of stuff. But as far as like, I don't know if it like bleeds over into inspiring my songwriting or not, but really my songwriting process is super personal. I just sit down and like, if I got something to say, it comes out. I don't force myself to write songs. I feel like I'm different from a lot of artists in that way, because like, you often hear artists say, oh, I have writer's block. How do I overcome this? I don't care about that. I'm like, if I don't write a song for a year, I'm like, good. That means that I didn't have anything to say. Nothing, made me. I only really write when I have a big emotional response to something. So if nothing happened that year, if none of my friends died, if, I feel like I'm doing okay in life, I'm not struggling, and I don't have anything to say, that was a good year in my opinion. Like honestly, the years of my life that sucked the most, those are the ones when I produced the most fucking music. So like I feel like naturally, as I grow older, and as I stabilize, and as I like embrace my sobriety for more years, my life naturally has progressed to being more stable and better, and I don't have a lot of things to complain about. But that doesn't mean I don't have things to say. It's just that the things like it pops up less frequently. So but that's also what I feel like gives, you know, my music its honesty, is that I'm not just writing for the sake of it. I'm writing when I have something to say, and that's the only time I write. So
That's amazing.
I just kind of sit with my guitar, and if something flows out, it does. A lot of the time I come up with lyrics a cappella, and then I add a guitar after.
That's how I
And
used
then
to
I
do it
take
too.
that, and then I take that to the band, and then we, as a band, decide what we hear, and we talk about it, and sometimes fight about it, and then we decide what we're going to do with it, you know. But ultimately, like, the goal is to just complement the song, and not, you know, not to detract from it, but just add and emphasize. And a lot of that time, a lot of the time, that means like, all right, this is just going to be a solo song, or this is just
Yeah.
going to be, you know, maybe me and Dan on me on guitar, Dan on mandolin. Like, we just evaluate that song by song about what we hear and how we think the message will be best uh, portrayed.
Well, it's proven successful. I really enjoy your music a lot, and it's amazing the same wavelength that we're both riding, because I also agree wholeheartedly with, like, if I didn't write nothing, man, I'm probably just chilling. Like, I
Yeah.
haven't written good music in like 10 years because I've had a family now, and that's what I didn't know I was supposed to have kids till I had one. And I was like, oh, this is what I was put here on this work on this earth for, because I'm freaking good at it. Like, I'm an awesome dad. And like, oh, okay. And so I wrote 2 songs in the last like 8 months, and both of them were like reminiscent songs. Like, I had to dig up some old. What happened was something sparked a memory, and it put me in a weird mood. And I wrote a song, and it left. And I was like, all right, there goes that mood. And then I was like, oh, that was kind of crazy. I haven't written like that in like almost a decade. And so, yeah, if you're not if you're not putting out a lot of music, maybe you're having a great time, you know?
I look at people that output a lot of music, and I'm like, damn, I hope you're okay.
Right, for sure. Like all these rappers, I'm like, oh, dude, you guys need to stop doing drugs and like maybe get like one consistent girlfriend for a little while, or boyfriend, whatever. Get your other person, get a consistent person for a little while, and like just chill for a little bit, and then go back to your craziness later when you need some new material. But like, yeah,
Right.
it's like,
Well,
yeah, a
I
lot of
know,
these
like,
younger dudes.
yeah, I know that like people really love our first album. Like, This City Isn't Big Enough. They really love our first album, and like, you know, like the things I write about change, and like the way I play and sing change, and like I'm never gonna write that album again. And but it doesn't bend me.
Right.
It doesn't like I used to, before we put our second album out. I used to be like, oh my god, will I ever live up to this album? Because it freaked me out that people liked it. I was like, oh my god, like now I have a reputation I have to live up to for the rest of my writing career. Like, am I ever gonna live up to that? And then like I slowly realized, like, you know, we put our second album out, it did really well. I was like, all right, whatever. But still, like, that first one is what everybody like loves and clings to, and it's because like they relate to what I was going through when I wrote it.
Yeah.
But like I'll never write that album again, and that's great. Like, because I don't want to ever write that album event
Yeah, you
again.
don't want the fuel for the fire. Like,
The
I don't
shit I
need
was
that in my
going through,
life.
yeah, the shit I was going through when I wrote that album, I don't want to ever go through again. I don't want to ever get sober again. I don't want to. I don't want to do it because it sucked. I don't want to
Well,
ever, you know, have that kind of heartbreak again.
100%. It's like I'm oh head Rants is my favorite band. They always will be. But they have that song. I can't pull the name of the song up, but they say through music you can live forever. And I think that's great, because that's true in a sense like this, is that you don't ever have to go through that again, because you've already done it, you've already got it. And the next generation gets to pick that up and listen to it, love it, feel it, and relate to it. That also creates kind of an amazing feeling, I guess I would say. But it gives you a good legacy to leave behind without having to revisit it. Like
Right.
like specifically bands like Metallica. I know it's a weird band to bring up, but like, dude, they can't remake Kill 'Em All, Ride the Lightning, and Master Puppets. Dude, they did that. That'll never, ever, ever happen again. Quit asking them to do it. They can't. They probably don't want to. Like, just let them grow and, you know, morph and change. You know, as people, we do it every day, or we're supposed to anyway. It should.
Right. Like, I hope I'm never as angry or sad as I was when I wrote my first record.
Right.
Or
Yeah.
even my second record. You know, I hope I just continue to grow and get less angry and less sad as life goes on.
That's amazing. I mean, you seem like the kind of person that's able to figure that out. I have quite a bit of faith in the fact that that'll happen. I mean, yeah, I'm so happy that I got to talk to you today. Thank you so much for your time. Is there anybody that you want to shout out, or anything you want to talk about before we get out of here? Anything at all?
Local News Legends going on tour in October with Sister Wife Sex Strike. They're another folk punk band that's like been making waves on TikTok lately. So check them out.
What was the name of them?
Sister Wife Sex Strike. They're from.
I think I've heard them before, but I
You've
can't.
probably seen them pop up on your For You page. They're like
Okay.
place. They're coming out east for the first time, so I'm excited to play some shows with them with Local News Legend. We're touring. Apes is touring at the end of the month with Escape from the Zoo and Holy Locust. We're doing like a couple of shows. So that's going to be fun. As far as other people to shout out that are just like doing stuff, starting up Littlefoot is an awesome folk punk act that's just like starting to get into the scene and play shows and tour. Check their music out, especially if you like that like more gritty, like Pat the Bunny kind of style, where it's like just a guy or a guy in a banjo. Like he's got that down. Good songs. Yeah, I mean, there's too many. I always forget who should I shout.
Sure.
But yeah.
Well,
I just think of real quick, you know.
One last question, and then I got one thing to tell you before I let you go. My question would be, I wanted to ask you, so I can't believe I almost forgot. Where does the name Apes of the State come from? I feel stupid asking that, but I just wanted to know.
So it's kind of disappointing. It doesn't really mean anything.
Let's go. I like it. Dude. That makes me actually really happy because I really hate when people get all like in their feels like, oh, well, it's like this word means this and then this means this, and we put it together. And, you know, like I had a band for a while, and we got signed to this little indie label out of Texas, and my drug abuse imploded all that, so it never really saw the light of day. I will be releasing it at some point. I finally found my master's. Anyways, we were trying to come up with a name for the record, and we couldn't come up with anything. And I was like, man, I don't remember how it came about, but I said the sentence, yeah, you got to hope for the best and prepare for the worst. And my buddy was like, yeah. And I was like, hey, that should be the name of our record. And he goes, yeah, it's kind of long though. And I was like, yeah, it is kind of long. And then like 3 days later, we were eating at a Chinese place, and they gave us fortune cookies at the end of the day. And I know you know where this is going. I swear, I cracked mine open and I took a bite out of it, and I like pulled the paper out and I spit the cookie on the table. And I was like, Pete. And my buddy was like, what? And I said, dude, look at this. And I slid it across, and it said, you must hope for the best, but you have to prepare for the worst. And that's what we called it. But yeah, and they don't always mean something. They always, you know, names are just names. So that's awesome though. I'm really happy that you're like, it doesn't mean anything. It's a cool name. It's very, it stuck out to me. I saw it, and I thought it was just a handle for a while, and then I realized it was a band. Like I said, about 6 months ago, I started getting into your music. So you got a forever fan with me now. I really appreciate your time, and it is very nice speaking with you. If you ever decide that you need help with anything, be it tapes or CDs or printing something, just feel free to reach out. I'm happy to help in any way that I can. So yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks for chatting.
Absolutely. You have a great day. Good luck on your tour and everything.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Awesome. Have a good one.
Yeah, you have a good one.